This is this 3-minute clip of a guy named Mark Aish. He is the CEO of TransPro. TransPro was the company basically hired to provide a lot of the staffing for Rick Snyder's takeover of local governments, so that they had basically contractors come in and function as elected representatives do, which of course was one of the primary reasons, and we know this now. We've seen the emails that were sent and circulated through the administration, Rick Snyder's administration, in terms of the problems with the water in Flint. The emails would say, they're complaining about the brown quality of the water and the smell of the quality of the water, but the Clean Water Act doesn't require us to have the water to be cosmetically attractive. So, it'll all blow over. When we get the new water system hooked up, this will just be in the rearview mirror. Nobody will care. In other words, if you want the perfect example of why it's important to have democratically elected representatives, because they are as unresponsive as we find them. They are far more responsive than someone who is just plugged in there and who has a constituency of one, that being Rick Snyder. And here's that guy talking to Heather Nauert, I don't know who she is, on Fox and Friends, the latest idiot there. Listen to how they talk about this. You think the conversation's going to go in one direction after the poisoning of thousands of children poisoned. And you think the conversation's going to go one direction, and then all of a sudden they just turn into complete lunatics. Listen to this.
So how on earth did this crisis happen in the first place? And should Flint's problems serve as a cautionary tale to the rest of the country? Joining us to weigh in, former advisor to the city of Detroit, Mark Aish. Mark, thanks for coming in this morning. The backdrop of this, to share with our viewers, serious financial problems in the state of Michigan and also in the city of Flint. When you first heard about corners being cut and this toxic stuff being in the water, what was your reaction?
Well, good morning, Heather. I got to tell you, if you look at the core responsibilities of government, right? The core responsibility of government is to make sure that the American people are safe. That's the core function of what government exists for. And so whether it's safe from those that would do us harm, foreign and domestic, whether it's making sure that we have safe food supplies.
Well, they failed to do that. They failed to do that here. And there are toxins in the water. Was that done just to save some money because of the financial problems that Flint was in?
So I think if you put it in that context, the other cornerstone is obviously to have safe water. And we're in a situation in Flint where they overspent for years 60% more money than they took in every year. And what that leads to is exactly to that point where you bring in an emergency manager. You can't afford what you do today, so they go to an inferior water supply simply to save money. And this is what happens. I think the broader lesson is here is, what does that mean to America, where we overspend by hundreds of billions a year?
Well, unfunded
we have
pension
a debt approaching us.
liabilities.
Pause it. Did you hear that? It wasn't guys like Mark Aish who cut corners to save a buck because that's what Rick Snyder wanted. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the elected governments before them that had got them in a hole, that forced these people to take these emergency managers, these privatized businessmen, to cut corners. Their hand was completely forced. And now this moron is going to talk about the U.S. government, which of course doesn't have the constraints of a city which does not have the ability to raise its revenue, right? I mean, Rick Snyder cut taxes in Michigan during this entire time. There was money there. They just decided, we're going to cut the taxes of the wealthy and to underfund the cities, the poor cities, the cities that are predominantly African American. That's what happened. The idea that this can be transposed, incidentally, to the United States is a joke because we can print our own money. In Flint, they couldn't print their own money. They couldn't even raise their own revenues. And then this idiot Heather Nauert, who apparently read on Breitbart there are 200 trillion underfunded. If I hear that figure again, I mean, it's going to make me just puke. Yeah, they are unfunded liabilities. In other words, we have not collected the money that we're going to pay out in 75 years to my kids' Social Security. That's correct. We have yet to collect that money. But presumably, people are going to be working until that day. And unless they all evaporate, disappear, go on a spaceship, go to Pluto, and then come back just to collect their Social Security, I don't think it's not going to be a problem. Continue.
Huge problem there. Also, healthcare costs for retirees and lots of people just fleeing the state of Michigan and moving elsewhere. But I do want to ask you about whether or not something like this could happen elsewhere in other cities that have aging infrastructure. What do you think about that?
So I think you have to worry about that. Anytime we're in a situation, as you look across the country, where we have $20 trillion in debt, that puts at risk the very core responsibilities of what government delivers. I think where the American people are weary, you see it in Flint and you see it across the country, is being charged Ritz-Carlton level taxes, but only getting Bates Motel quality government. Wow. We're seeing that play out in Flint today. Yeah. You have to worry for the nation.
We certainly do, if this could happen somewhere else. You know, one more thing. You say that the government has misplaced priorities, not in terms of where they're spending their money. Yes, you say that, but also focusing on some things that they shouldn't spend their time on. Tell me about that.
Well, you look at, the debate that we want to have over climate change, for example, while we don't have the ability to provide people in Flint with clean drinking water. You know, coming here today, as we all did to the studios, we had a 1 in 9 chance of driving across a bridge that is structurally deficient. Yeah. And we simply can't continue to have these...
to say that we're spending too much time on PC stuff. We're going to have to leave it there. Mr. Ash, thanks so much for joining us, having worked in Detroit on these issues.
That's not from The Onion. You know what? They had the ability to deliver clean water to Flint. They had an incredibly, almost the easiest ability. They were Detroit said they would continue to provide that water until Flint built the new pipe to Lake Huron. The idea that somehow climate change, being concerned about climate change, inhibited Mark Ash's buddies from providing clean water to Flint is a joke. And then, of course, all the trouble with PC, all the political correctness that inhibits providing that clean water. They are sociopaths. I mean, the idea of Rick Snyder, everyone who's ever, I think anybody who's ever met the guy should be arrested at this point. Unbelievable. Really just shocking.